change.
The Bliss Business Podcast, the show about empathy, connection, and consciousness in business. Today's episode is brought to you by Zero Company, your paid search, social media, and programmatic ad experts.
Welcome to the Marketing with Purpose Kit series of the Bliss Business Podcast, where we explore what it really takes for marketing leaders to create impact that goes beyond the numbers. I'm Tullio, and in each episode, we sit down with marketing experts to explore their leadership approach and strategies that drive performance and resonate with their audience. Together, we'll dive into what's working, what's not, and how purpose and empathy can transform the way brands connect with people. So let's get started. Today, I'm joined by Darren Keeler, who's the Vice President of Marketing and Creative at Shuckin Shack Oyster Bar. Since 2019, Darren has been the creative force behind the brand's genuine, fun-loving, and community-driven experience. He combines local coastal culture, crave-worthy food, and authentic storytelling to build deep emotional connections with guests and fuels the Shack's continued growth. A former top 40 radio DJ, Darren brings a rare ability to connect with people on a personal level, translating authenticity, empathy, and joy into every part of the brand experience. We're going to explore bringing purpose and empathy into marketing, and I'm excited to dive in. Welcome to the show, Darren. Looking forward to this conversation with you.
Thanks, Tullio. That introduction was very heartwarming.
Our pleasure. So let's dive right in. So, Darren, before we do, I'd love to hear why was bringing purpose and empathy into marketing the topic you chose to explore with us today, and what makes this so important right now in our time, nowadays?
Well, so I picked this topic for today to talk about because we are so in the marketing world and the digital world, we are so data driven, right? And sometimes you lose focus on the real end game, that we are in the service industry, right? And we are serving people. And people are not computer based. People have thoughts, people have feelings. And that's why, bringing empathy and impactfulness to what we're doing in marketing, especially now more than ever, is vital in success and growing a brand, growing a business, whether you're a small mom and pop business or a franchise business. It comes down to empathy and that personal connection with who you're serving.
Yeah, it's so true. Things are so perfect today with AI that it's almost losing a little bit of that authenticity that's behind when people think about it. So, but the reality is, CMOs are often pulled between near-term campaign results and long-term brand building. I'm sure you experienced that. But how do you ensure your marketing strategy stays aligned with the company's growth goals, and where do you find the biggest friction points in making that happen?
Well, so, a lot of our franchisees, a lot of business owners with that short-term campaign that they want to put a Band-Aid over, right? It's just that Band-Aid aspect of marketing. Like, I have a problem, I need to fix it now. How can we do that? Right. And sometimes with local business owners, they think just posting on social media about my specials will really help drive traffic with no money put behind it, right? Nothing, no thought like, hey, I have $3 beers today. Open up the door. Where's the line? I posted this on social media. My 10,000 followers on my Facebook page should be here. Like, that is not sustainable, and it's not engaging, and it doesn't have any purpose or impact, right? Yes, it's a necessary evil in our industry, in the full service industry, restaurant industry, that you have to do that, right? Because people will look at that. They'll look at your Google business page, your Apple page, your Meta pages, right? Of what are they doing today? What's the immediate impact, right? Especially in the world today where consumers and everybody, like even ourselves, right? We want the information now. I'm scrolling on TikTok. 15-second, 20-second, 30-second videos. That's how I get my information, especially with soundbite kind of trends now, right? That's how we learn. That's how we make decisions. You have 30 seconds to get me, right? And with the short-term marketing plans, that's what we try to focus on. We try to focus on something that is impactful, engaging. It goes into those emotional buckets, right, that we all talk about in the marketing world. And having those short-term marketing goals that way of, this isn't going to be immediate. The consumers are not going to be here in an hour, but they're going to be here hopefully in 2-3 days. You're looking for that short long-term plan of, yes, you're going to do this now. You're going to see some conversions in the next 3 days. It's not going to be overwhelming. You're not going to see it until probably a week later, right? In all of your data and your sales. And it's not going to be immediate where you're going to notice it. But in the long term, when it goes to that long-term brand growth style of marketing, you're going to notice the little chipping away of that, right? The building blocks. I like to say it's like little Lego blocks, right? Yeah, like we have kids, right? You have all the Legos kind of poured out on the floor on Saturday morning. Us as dads step on them and we say some words, but they're out there, right? And then by, that's 6 a.m. in the morning, those Lego blocks are out. And then by noon, there's some building blocks. There's things you could start seeing forming, right? And that's where that long-term growth plan comes into effect. So using the short-term marketing plans of, yes, post this post on Meta, go out, do grassroots marketing, throw out some free app cards, some callback cards to local businesses, local groups around your community. Those are the pieces, the Lego pieces that are around on the carpet floor on Saturday morning at 6 a.m. Later that day, it's going to build into something that resembles success, right? Once you start putting those blocks together, and it takes time and communicating to the franchisees and to the local business owners that this does take time is vital. It really comes down to the communication and that.
Yeah. I'll say something that's probably something we've thought about as marketers, but haven't spoken. Part of being empathetic is not only just meeting the needs of the individual beyond the transaction, but in this case, in our day, it's also meeting the need for that dopamine fix. Mm-hmm. So your campaign need to deliver some dopamine in order to get their attention, right? So this is the reality we're in. That's just have to accept it, right? Exactly. People are going there for the dopamine fix. So you've got to have a campaign that gives them the dopamine fix, but also gives them the value beyond the dopamine fix.
Yeah. And to add on to that too, it's a lot of times it comes down to me versus us, right? Me as a business owner, I want my sales to grow, right? I want this. And then switching your mindset to what's the us. What's the us portion of this? Yes, I'm the business owner. I have my staff member, I have my bartenders, servers, and then I have my customers that are sitting at my bar, sitting at my tables with their family. You have to include everybody into your mindset of how to market, what I'm serving, how I'm serving it, and where I'm serving these ads and these marketing campaigns, right? So using the me versus us kind of mindset in that, combining, taking out the verses and just having us
it's
as
community.
your mindset is vital.
Just treat everybody as part of the community. That's one of the things that came very loudly when we interviewed your CEO. It was just beautiful how you guys look at that. So, but let's dig in a little bit more. What happens when the pressure bubbles up, right? Maybe you can mention some of the things you guys did during the pandemic, which we thought was phenomenal. But in high stakes situations, sometimes you have a crisis that comes up, whether it's something that happened at one of your location or a brand crisis or a market downturn or situation beyond your control. how do you maintain a sense of purpose and empathy while making those quick strategic decisions? You talked about the us versus them, maintain that community mindset. Can you share some examples of how you've had to manage through that when things like, we need the business, but we are in a crisis, but how do you manage? Because that's a difficult thing to do. What's worked for you guys?
One of the things that, well, it's not one of the things, it's one of many of the things that we did was listen, open ear, right? Keeping that open ear with our franchisees and our customers during those crisis eras, right? Those little pockets of freaking out. What are we going to do next thing? It's okay. We're trying to overthink and overanalyze everything in our heads at the top level, and then changing our thinking of, well, what does everybody else want? Like, let's just stop, let's breathe, and ask our franchisees, ask our customers what they want, and then using that feedback to get through that crisis, right? And molding the way that we market, molding the way that we operate, the operations of the back of the house, to how we're making our drinks, how we're communicating who we are in those times of crisis. Because sometimes in those times of crisis, yes, we have our brand guidelines, but you just tweak it a little bit to change our messaging just a little bit to really speak with empathy, right, to our consumers, of saying, hey, we know how you're feeling and we're there with you, so let's be together during this time.
Yeah, that's so powerful, to meet people where they are based on what's happening,
Exactly.
Instead of just ignoring it and keeping, you have to pivot to adjust to what's happening, to the reality of what's happening, because ultimately that's going to build that trust and loyalty. So let's move on to launching new locations. You guys are a franchise, you're expanding, so you enter new markets. What has been the most effective way to align, like, sales, product, your customer success teams, everything that goes into the back office operation with the launch of that new market initiative, right? Where does that alignment tend to break down historically, and how have you guys worked to have systems in place to overcome it?
So, we follow suit with a lot of other franchise systems and concepts where we have that grand opening playbook. Like, we're brand new in the market. We have a grand opening playbook. Here's the playbook. Read this, do this, right? And what we found is the best thing that we can do, especially with a brand like Shuckin Shack, that is genuine, authentic, coastal vibes, right? And now that we're moving inland, right, away from the coast, and we're moving inland, how do you convey who we are, what we serve, what we're all about? And the way that we do that is just being genuine, right? We have that playbook, but this playbook is not just words on a paper. It's your personality, your character, and who you are as an owner and as a franchisee, and showcase that. And when it comes down to the marketing in a new market, it's networking, community involvement, being a part of everything in your community, whether that's joining a community group, a business alliance, a chamber of commerce, and then sponsoring charity events, right? Or just showing up prior to you opening up your doors at a Shuckin Shack. Join these groups and show up to all their events, right? So by the time you open up your door, all these community members, these local business owners, they're consumers too, right? And they have a lot of power with the word of mouth of who's a good person and who's a good business owner, right? And new businesses coming into town. So networking and being a part of the community is huge when we're getting into a new market, because you can do all the digital ads that you want. You see it, it's oversaturated right now with just in your face. Here's who we are. Here's a picture of great looking food and drinks. And yes, we eat with our eyes first, right? But when you walk through the doors, you're trying to escape, in a way, your life, right? So especially with us in a full service restaurant with a full bar, we're laid back sports bar vibe with genuine coastal atmosphere. You want to escape to someplace like that, right?
Yeah.
So when you walk through the door, you want to see that friendly face in front of you that's saying, "Hey, welcome to Shuckin Shack." Not a big spiel, but like, "Hey, the Braves are on right now, or we got 14 TVs. What game do you want to see? Like, what's your team? We're going to turn it on for you wherever you're sitting, right in front of you, so you could have the best experience with us, with the best quality food and cold beers, and just sit here and escape life for a while." So that's one of those things going into a new market that we really harp on, that the word of mouth and the networking and the personal connection you could have with your community is by far one of the best things you can ever do when you're coming into a new market. But then on the other end of that is when you open up your doors, don't stop. We see that a lot.
Yeah. I mean, you said something so key. It's all about the experience, right? Because consuming food is just a transaction. I could do it at home. I could do it through Grubhub. I could do it anywhere, right? But what I want is a unique experience. It's about hospitality. It's about that escape. So, and this is something that's more challenging sometimes for franchises because, like you said, you might have the coastal vibe, but now you're moving inland. Maybe you need the lake vibe or the river vibe or the mountain vibe or the desert vibe, so you have to cater to the needs of those individuals. And so I'd be curious to find out, you said something about listening and hearing customers. When was there a time, if you could share, there was a time, maybe a customer feedback or behavior data that completely shifted your campaign direction? And what did that teach you about balancing intuition with analytics?
So, one of the things that kind of sticks out in my mind is going market to market, right? You have coastal vibes here where we were founded in the Cape Fear region of North Carolina, and live music, like, it was really, really awesome, right? People love acoustic live music in the corner of a bar, right? And just sitting there drinking their beers, having a great time on a Thursday night with their wife or girlfriend or boyfriend or whoever, right? And then when we get into certain markets that are in certain areas in those markets, it's like, all right, maybe the live music isn't what they're looking for. Maybe they're just looking to watch their game without live music happening on the side, right? They want to hear the sound of the game because they're in that city of that team. They're not at that game, right? But they want to hear everything that's happening while eating, while drinking, while talking to their friends and rooting on for their team. And maybe let's not have this live music on that Thursday night or Friday night or whatever, So that's one example of like what we kind of listened to at a couple of our locations. Or, people just weren't showing up for the live acoustic duo. And it's maybe this just isn't a music city. So let's try to figure out what they are, what kind of market they are, right? So that kind of goes away from what our brand was kind of founded on, of mixing music, sports, great seafood, all that kind of stuff, right? And that atmosphere. But let's see, do they really love trivia? And then all of a sudden, yes, 30 people showed up the first night for trivia night. Okay, this is a trivia town. This is what they really love in their bars, right? So that's one of those examples of listening to the consumers and then pivoting what we're doing.
That's amazing. And sometimes you have multiple likes too. So one thing I liked, I think of this place called The Hub. It's in Allen, Texas, just outside of Dallas. Wednesday nights, they'll have movie night for family, and then they have live music night, and then it's football night. It's football, because football's religion in Texas, right? So you're catering to 3 different vibes all in one place. So being open and being flexible, and that takes a lot of effort to then pivot and make that happen. But that's a commitment to creating a great experience. So thanks for sharing that with us. Let's continue on here. what's worked best for turning marketing into a revenue driver at the company? Because that's always the big question, right? Show me the money, right? As marketers, all this stuff is great, but how does that translate to an ROI? So what's been like a best way for you to turn marketing into a revenue driver at your company? Where do you still see gaps, like in the CRM or lead tracking or sales alignment, that makes it hard to measure success? Because most CEOs are struggling still with this, like trying to fully show every component, every metric. So I'm just curious, what's working and where are the areas where you're still like, man, we still need to figure this out?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of open-ended question, right? And open-ended answer that will change in 30 seconds from the time we hang up from this call. It's continuously evolving in the world of marketing, where what's working right now or what worked last week isn't going to work in 3 months. With seasonal changes, demographics changing in each market, who's moving in, are there new apartment complexes being built in that market that are bringing in younger families, because younger families can't afford houses right now in certain markets. So they're moving into condos, right? And it's like all of this is ever evolving, and it's very, very hard to understand because it changes with a snap of a finger. And really what we've seen as the success of driving sales for us is that personal, genuine connection. Like we all know, marketing's job is to get the consumer in the first time, right? Operations job is to keep them coming back. So with Shuckin Shack, full service restaurant, sports bar, seafood restaurant, the vibe, our job as marketers are to get in front of consumers' faces as much as possible to say, hey, remember us, come back in, or, oh, you haven't been to see us. That's where the digital kind of works in. With us, Meta works the best, and then Google after that. But really what it comes down to is that grassroots personal connection. That's where we've seen the most impactful conversions of brand new customers walking through our doors. Is they heard from somebody that they had a great time Friday night at Shuckin Shack with their crew. So they're coming back in on Tuesday for oyster happy hour, right? So that has been the most impactful way. And that comes down to that symbiotic relationship between marketing and operations of, I got them through the door, now it's your turn, right, to keep them here. And that comes down to great customer service, the product that we're putting out, the fresh seafood, the beers on tap, the signature cocktails that we're serving, and then even down to the music that we're playing, right? The house music, what's playing on the house music? What are our servers talking about? Are they being genuine, or are they just there for a paycheck, right? Or their tip, right? So this all, it all crosses over with us, with our concept and our brand at Shuckin Shack, that it has to be experiential. We have all the data, and we do follow the data, right? And we do work with that data of where we're marketing, how we're marketing, but it really comes down to that personal connection, that empathy, that experience for the consumer, for the customer of, are you going to tell your friends and family after your experience with us?
I love that, because if you're not focused on that, then all that data can turn into noise that you're trying to distill. So when you're elevating to understand that there's people involved, not just bits and bytes, you can apply it in a way that's practical. Love that. All right, let's continue. We're coming up to the end here. We've got 2 more questions. One of the big challenges as a head of marketing or CMO is also developing your marketing talent, creating performance goals. What approach to developing marketing talent so that they not only hit performance goal, but also stay engaged and inspired? And where do you see leaders struggling most in retaining top talent? What's worked for you, and what have you seen that's like the most challenging thing to retain good talent?
What's worked for me is especially working with our local franchisees, because they're all part of the marketing team, right? Especially on the local level, right? We are very hyper local focused in our marketing tactics, that everybody from your bartender to you as a franchisee to me in the corporate office, we're all part of the marketing team because we're all putting out that content. Really what has worked for me is letting them do whatever they want to do. I give them guidance. I give them direction. I monitor everything of what they're doing. If it's something that doesn't align with our brand guidelines, I'll delete it. I'll reach out to them and say, hey, you need to change this, right? We have our brand guidelines. We have the pictures that you need to use. You have the videos that you need to use. You have ideas that I give to you. But it comes down to you to execute them. And really what's worked is telling them not to overanalyze anything, not to overthink it. Just do it. It's okay. It's okay if it doesn't work right now, because you have the next 364 days to try it again.
Yeah.
You know,
it's amazing what happens when you give people clear guidance and tools and trust them to be adults about it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty amazing. All right, last question as we wrap up. When you think about the role marketing plays in your company's future, and I think I know what the answer is going to be because you've touched on this, but how do you feel about the role of purpose and empathy in creating genuine resonance, connecting with people in a way that reflects your company's values?
Well, yeah, this entire episode has been all about that, right? So, I don't want to be repetitive of everything that I said, but it really drives our brand. We are a genuine, authentic brand that is more than just crab legs, shrimp, oysters, beer. We're a lifestyle brand. Everything about us is driven by our lifestyle. From our co-founders, right? Matt and Sean, they live at the beach. I live at the beach, right? It's creating what they built as the brand and bringing that to all of these markets that just really want that experience. And when you deliver that experience the right way, the genuine way, not a box manual of this is what you need to say. That's you need that for operations. Marketing, it's always changing, it's always evolving, and you have to be fluid and genuine with it and authentic, because people nowadays can see through a lot of that setup marketing stuff, the very awesome put together pictures, videos, high definition, whatever, right? They see through that. They want to see authentic content, authentic marketing, and authentic experiences bleed through to that will make them decide to go to your concept, to go to your restaurant, to buy your product, right? They want that authenticity and that purpose of they're like me, so I'm going to go try their product.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us today on the Bliss Business Podcast, Marketing with Purpose Kids series. And I hope today's conversation sparked new ideas for how you can align strategy, execution, and purpose in your own work. If you found value in this discussion, please like, subscribe, and share this with others to keep the conversation going. And remember, I think it's been very clear today what we've learned. Great marketing doesn't just sell, it serves. See you next time.